Juliette Bryant, welcome back to the show.
Great. Thank you
I'm
for having me on again. It's so lovely to see you again after, all this time.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm so honored that you asked me to come back on the show because I wasn't going to ask you back. Like I've seen how stressful doing these shows is for you, and how painful it's got to be to sort of relive a lot of this stuff. And so I'm really honored that you trusted me with coming back on the show. I really appreciate it.
Great. Well, you've become like a friend. I love you and your family. You've always been such a huge support, and even with regardless of interviews, you message and check how I am, and thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries.
You're amazing.
I feel like, there's a bond with people that have been through abuse. I think people that have gone through that type of stuff, particularly sexual abuse, have got, an understanding of the way it kind of messes people up. And so I'm always trying to be very sensitive. And I always like to, check in with people to see how they're doing because I know that it produces a lot of long-term issues, pain, struggles, right? And so so I really appreciate it, and I'm really happy to have you back. Before we get started, I know there's some things you want to talk about. I want to get to that healing part first, but there's been something that's been, as you know, has been stuck in my craw for a long time, and I sort of alerted you to this, which was the Charlie Kirk thing. So I was doing research for an episode because I got some. There's been a weird thing that happened since he died. Like I didn't know a lot about him until it happened, and I keep seeing all this stuff leak out. You find out his wife is kind of a terrible person, and everybody he surrounded himself with at Turning Point USA is corrupt and doing a bunch of really dodgy financial things and tied into all these really weird political things. And so I started my question was like, how does somebody like him, who's viewed as like this saint, like he's the greatest person that ever lived, surround himself with the worst people imaginable, including Donald Trump and Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, people he calls his best friends. I'm like it didn't jive for me, so I started doing some research. And actually, remember when I was going up to Seattle, we were kind of talking about when my dog got cancer. I was on a very long drive both ways, and I was listening to his episodes, and I came across that one where he mentioned you by name. That threw me into a rage.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just you, but I mean, I know you were mentioned by name, but what he did there really deeply upset me. And for those of my audience who haven't heard the clip, it's basically him. And this was the week he died. This is very, very, very much towards the end. He basically took an entire episode to trash the victims and basically say, like the Juliette Bryant, she took the money. He said it like 3 times,
Yeah, and I always stood up for him until you showed me that, because I also the mainstream narrative is that he's a good guy, so I was very upset when he died. And then when you showed me that, I was like, oh my God, like, why was he attacking me? He doesn't even know me. Like, has he even ever spoken to any of the Epstein victims? Like, people can be very quick to judge, but they should actually meet someone and speak to them before they jump to conclusions. And especially when they're broadcasting things live on air like that, speaking about someone, it's actually defamation of character is what it is.
100%. If he was still alive, he'd be in trouble for that because he said things that were patently false. And I think the thing that upsets me the most is Charlie Kirk wasn't stupid. I always sort of have this, I came up with this phrase like Charlie Kirk wasn't stupid, but he made content for stupid people. He knew exactly what
he was appealing to the masses.
Yes. Well, the thing people don't realize about Charlie Kirk is he's a propagandist, right? His job was to sit in between the GOP establishment, the Republican power structure, and this young audience. And his job was to deliver these people to the polls. His job was to get
a puppet.
Exactly.
He was a puppet.
And so he was stuck in the middle. And this is the interesting thing I learned from watching all his episodes is that he's a tool of the establishment, but his job was to sort of take that message from the White House and the Epstein class that runs this current administration and push it out to his audience. But his audience also pushed back. So he sat in the middle because his audience, he'd go to obviously the rallies and the events and the speaking engagements, and he would hear directly from this and the audience, and he would have to deliver that message back to the White House, and he was sort of mediating in between, which is why there was so much conflicting messaging from him, and why he would say on one hand, we've got to release the Epstein files, and we're all about the victims, and then Like I said, in a different setting, he was told by the White House that you have to attack the Epstein victims, or at least sow doubt, right? So that whole episode, it was like, you can't trust these people. They're just out there for the money. This is like the Me Too movement again.
Definitely.
And the worst part is that it was actually a fairly
Sorry, my
sophisticated.
dog.
No, it's totally fine.
Sorry, they're being shoppers. Out of here, out of here. I got some treats. Out.
Get rid of
Sorry,
those.
sorry. They're jumping and playing behind me on their bed and
I,
making
I,
a real
I,
noise. Sorry.
I can't tell you how many episodes I've had dogs just rolling through the background or barking. I get it. It's totally fine.
But you're right. Like, it's almost like he was spreading misinformation, to control the narrative. And, he was very popular and people listened to what he said. So if he said that, like, the Epstein victims are lying, or that he said that I just took the money and I lied about what I saw there, it's very insulting because he actually should have interviewed me and questioned me on it instead of just jumping to conclusions and speaking about it when he actually knows nothing about it. So he obviously was like programmed agenda, and he was told what to say, it seems. Because I wouldn't say that he sort of brought that up himself. He obviously had a checklist of things that he had to, you know,
Correct, and
so
that's exactly right. And so I will tell you this from listening to hundreds of hours of his show. He mentioned several times that he was getting show notes delivered to him by Stephen Miller. So it was coming directly from the White House, and he was told what to say on his show by the White House. And so and you can see it too, because I've seen Charlie Kirk talk off the cuff, and that's like a more unfiltered version of what he really thinks. Like, people are always like, oh, he was against the Iran war. And it's like, well, yeah, in some sense he was. He kept saying that it was a bad idea. But as soon as the bombs started dropping, he went on a show to defend the president. And he just sort of tried to push the messaging out to his audience. And I think that's part of the reason that got him in trouble a little bit, is he tried to play both sides. He tried to sit in the middle. He collected massive amounts of money to be this propagandist. But I think he got himself twisted
well,
around some very powerful people's interests, and there were diverging interests. And I don't think anyone knows exactly who killed him or why, but I think that
yeah.
he misunderstood the level of power that he was playing with. And I think you know that a little bit by directly interfacing with Jeffrey Epstein. You know kind of what that upper echelon of power looks like and what they're capable of.
Yeah, exactly. And also to kill him in front of people like that was also highly traumatic for a lot of people. I mean, it must have been awful, terrible for all the people standing there, and it's like it's a way to like terrify people. And yeah, it's just horrible. It's like they used him for the mass agenda, the narrative of things, and then they actually ended his life, it seems, with that sort of, in the same sort of way, like spreading misinformation, hurting people, lying, because that was just very weird. The whole thing of how he was killed. There's so many different things. Like, people think, was he shot from a cell phone? Was he shot through the speaker he was talking on? Like, I'm sure a lot of people have watched that clip, and it's very weird, like the way it all happened. And they say it was a shooter on a roof, right? But I mean, it didn't really seem like it. Like, and some people even think that maybe it was all staged and he's still alive. How are we supposed to trust anything anymore, really? It was like, that was all staged, as it seemed. Like, it's just like a terrible time to actually kill someone in public, especially like at a youth place. I actually put online that there was going to be a shooting in Ohio like a month before.
I
Sometimes I
remember.
like
I think didn't
feel
you
things,
say Utah though? I thought you said Ohio or Utah. I think you.
Yeah, I said Ohio. Oh, yeah, 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 you're right. I said it was Utah that had happened. Sorry, coming from South Africa, But I said it was going to be in Ohio or Utah, and then suddenly it was actually a school shooting, but it was a different sort of school shooting because he was shot in front of the students, the university, right? I mean, it's horrific to terrify people like that. And I mean, I'm still, like, obviously upset that he was rude about myself and others, but I feel terribly sorry for him for what happened to him. I think a lot of people get used. And a lot of people also sell their souls to the devil, unfortunately. It's something I've come to have to accept, over time. It's like, seems like a lot of people, they're willing to sacrifice goodness for money.
Yeah, for sure. That really was weird, and that's the first indication that I had that the intelligence community had something to do with it. Because they really, when they do these types of high level assassinations, they love the fact that there's confusion. right? And there was that shooting was all about confusion, right?
Like
There's
JFK. Yeah.
exactly like JFK, right? Nothing made any sense, and people they start to put the pieces together. Like this is not lining up for me. It's like,
Yeah.
for example, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the ballistics. I know Americans definitely we love our guns, but a 30-06 is an incredibly powerful rifle, right? Like it takes down elk, it'll take down a moose, right? And to shoot somebody in the soft tissue of the neck typically would result in just blowing the neck completely apart, right? And so the
Yeah, you're right.
impact.
And not just a little hole. And also, what about Trump getting his ear shot?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
There was
weird
another
too.
one. It's very, because it would actually be easier if you want to take someone out. Like I would obviously never do that, but for other people who do things like that, it would be easier to do it in a quiet area. Not in a place where people are like being publicly watched. It's obvious. It's a show. They're doing it to scare people, and because it's all bizarre.
Well, did you hear what Candace Owens alleged about Charlie Kirk and Tyler Boyer with respect to Trump's donation from Miriam Adelson?
No, I
So
don't know
this
about
this
all
is
that.
this is interesting. So Candace Owens said that she was speaking with not Tyler Boyer. It was Andrew Colvett and Charlie Kirk, uh, who were in the presence of President Trump at some meeting at the White House. And they both claimed that Trump said that he took that, whatever, $300 million from Miriam Adelson for his election campaign. And he said that he was going to screw her over. He was like, I'm just going to take the money and I'm going to not do what she wants to do. And then Butler happened like a week later. And so there's some speculation that those two are linked essentially. Like that was Miriam Adelson being like, no, you're not going to do this. So that's an interesting theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but it kind of tracks, and especially with the way Trump's been governing this term, basically being another extension of the Israeli government. It's been wild to watch.
There are so many lies in the media, and I was brought up. My mum's spiritual, and she always told us that, like, the media often lies. And she said, like, a lot of people, like, she didn't want. My mum never wanted us to watch the news because she said, "What about all the millions of people who've had a happy day?" Because they never
Mm.
broadcast that. All the people that are doing well, it's always negativity and strumming up a whole lot of stuff too. It's about creating fear within people. And yeah,
Fear
the
and
media
division.
just
I think those are the two things.
lies.
Fear and division. It's like we gotta
Yeah,
have an other. You have to have some group that is scaring people into being against, and people just end up fighting. That's why I hate politics so much. It's just terrible. And this is also why I think the Charlie Kirk shooting was very important. I think you touched on something important, like the fact that it's a public spectacle. It was done in public in front of all of those people, and it was done with a alleged shooter who plays directly into that narrative that the TPUSA people put forward, which is like, oh, it's the gays, it's the trannies, it's they're the bad people and we're the good people. And they're like,
yeah,
if
it's
it, he,
always yeah,
it's and so if you were like running a propaganda operation, like that would be the best storyline that you could conceive of. Is like it's the now you've made him number one. He's gone from being a problem because he had been talking about the Epstein case. He had been talking about the Iran war in a negative light. And now he was saying like I'm abandoning the pro-Israel cause. Like that was a problem, and now the problem is gone, and now he's like a martyr, and now he's you get to use his death as another wedge to even separate people further and to increase the division between those groups, right?
exactly. And also, like, the way they're blaming trans people for the shootings. What I think it comes down to is actually pharmaceutical pills. When people are medicated, a
Yeah.
lot of people sort of lose it, and a lot of people who are trans are actually put on a lot of pills, as we know, like hormonal pills, and it really messes with the way people are feeling. And I really think that, it's a lot of, because in South Africa, we don't have school shootings like that. And people say South Africa is so dangerous, but people here aren't medicated. People can't afford it, and, there's some people who are medicated, but most people, because, the pharmaceutical companies, they want to catch someone, they want you as a customer for life. The health industry, if they cured people, they wouldn't be making any money. You know, it's all about getting someone on a pill for life, and they don't care about people's well-being. And also,
Yep.
I mean, in South Africa, it's very hard to actually get a gun. Like I don't even know anyone who really has a gun. I know like one or two people who have guns. But here, people don't have guns because if they did, we'd be in a lot of trouble. You know, and I think that when people go and buy a gun for their 15-year-old and then the child's medicated on pills, I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. You know, because all teenagers go through hard times. I remember when I was 13, 14, going through a tough time. It's a big transition in one's age, growing up, you know, in one's life. And I think that people should just, instead of medicating their kids, you know, speak to them and help them. And also through diet, people can get healthier. You know, it's like pharmacy, take away the P, it's pharmacy. Add an F, take away the PH, you get pharmacy. Let food be thy medicine. You know, and I think it's same with the media, the brainwashing. Like they advertise McDonald's and all these things, you know, that aren't really healthy for people. And people just actually need to care for each other more. And also what you're saying with the media lying, like as far as like Charlie Kirk spinning a narrative that was obviously projected. You know, it's you know, when I learned how much the media lie when I started trying to speak out against Epstein, because none of the mainstream media would interview me. And when they did, they would take out Clinton's name. They took out a lot of stuff. And I wasn't even just telling them all the other stuff that had happened, like seeing the UFO. I was just giving the rundown of how I met him. And they were taking out Clinton's name and omitting certain facts. And it was only recently when the files came out did the mainstream media suddenly want to interview me. Because that's why I started speaking out on X before that, because I was actually very nervous, like about my security. Like I've had like weird things happen where I've been followed. Like I can't even take my son to the beach anymore. I've had people following us in business suits, photographing us. I've had my tires slashed on my car twice. I've been followed by a van in the night. You know, there've been multiple things that have happened. So thank God I live in a security estate. But you know, when I started speaking out on X, they kept blocking me. And they like labeled me as false information. TikTok just took it off. They're like false information. And the thing is, TikTok was not there. I was there. How do TikTok how can they know if it's false information when they weren't actually there? And that's what you got to realize with the news. If something's going to upset people, they're not going to put it out there. And it's quite a surprise that they actually have been releasing the files. I think there's been people are so furious, you know, that they've had to start releasing stuff. But apparently it's going to trickle out. And, you know, as we've seen, there is more and more coming out, and it's more horrific than most people realized. You know, it's taken me many years to like heal. I'm still healing, you know, from it all. But, you know, I know what happened to me there. I know, you know, and I just think that the media needs to start, you know, caring about more truth, because the media are most interested in what makes the media money.
That's true, but the media has changed, right? Like I know that we grew up at the time where there was, just a very few number of major media outlets and they controlled the entire narrative. If you're familiar with Project Mockingbird, CIA basically controlled, at least in America, all of the news agencies. That's why we got the same message from all of them all the time in unison. But we're the media now. Like I have my tiny channel. I'm the media. Look, everybody on social
Yeah,
media is the media now, and we have the ability to sort of circumvent that. And I think we're seeing that. There's a vocal minority of people that are like, release the goddamn Epstein files, unredacted, all of them now. Like there's people that haven't given up on that. It feels like it's
you're right.
dwindling a little bit, but I feel like we gotta do this. Like people got to keep the pressure on, because the pressure worked to some degree. Because I mean, shit, Thomas Massey got some of those files released. We know they're not the worst ones. We know it's been heavily redacted, or in the case of where the you unredact stuff you should have been redacting. That was horrific to watch. Um,
Yeah.
but it's moving. The needle's moving a little bit, so that's a win.
Maybe Elon Musk's help too, you know, because he's certainly helped by having X, you know. That's where I was able to speak out more, and I started getting followers, and people started to realize, and that's how slowly but surely, you know, people can see I'm just trying to tell everyone what happened. And I think, you know, a lot of people have been able to get more truth out on X, and you know, like even Musk even said, we are now the media. And you know, like also even the Maxwells used to own the media. You know, sorry, my little boy, I'm coming. Sorry, Brent.
No worries.
Come darling. I'm coming back right now, Brent. I'm just going to get these dogs out. Betty, can you keep them out? They're actually making a noise. Thanks so much, Betty. I can. Sorry, sorry, Brent. I've asked Kai's nanny to assist with my naughty dogs to watch them too. Sorry.
No worries. No worries.
But, Yeah, I mean, Maxwell's family used to own the media, and like they say, control the media, control the minds, control
Not only the
people. Because
media,
if you own the
Juliette.
media,
Hold on, sorry to interrupt. Not only the media, textbooks. I'm not sure if you know this, but the
oh
the
yes,
major
the sister,
textbook publisher in the United States for all the public schools, that was owned by Robert Maxwell.
his sister. I mean, Maxwell's sister runs them still apparently, or she's involved somehow. You're right. So you indoctrinate people with, I mean, even I'm actually disappointed with school because they didn't teach me proper history. There's a lot of stuff which I've had to actually learn myself. They teach you a whole lot of, stuff that's, they don't piece things together properly, and they don't really want us knowing about history because history's also we've been lied to about history. It's much like the media lies. The history, I mean, a lot of history was like the media,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
when
Yeah.
they burned all the witches and, all that. And
Yeah,
the,
Norm Macdonald had this great quote or great line. He was like, "Wow, the history books said the good guys won every time. Imagine that." It's like it's
yeah,
ridiculous. And the crazy thing is that I think we now have a great context of how messed up history is because we just went through the COVID regime and we lived through it a couple years ago, and nobody still has a clue what actually happened. You know what I'm saying? Like that was a major global event,
yeah,
and
it was.
everyone today, a couple of years later, is just like, well, I'm not exactly sure what happened.
Well, I don't know many people who died from COVID, but I have heard of many people who died afterwards, which one is led to believe that it was the vaccine. It was like through people's minds. They terrified people and got people to go and get the COVID vaccine. And a lot of people, I know so many young people who've died. It's terrible. Like on my Facebook, friends from school in the past, like 40-year-olds and 30-year-olds and people it's that should have lived long lives. And there's just it's also people get terrified, I think, like mentally with it all. And you know often the fright of something scares someone more. Like apparently some people have cancer but they don't actually know they've got it and they recover from it. But if someone gets cancer and goes to the doctor and the doctor says they've got cancer, the fright of it's enough to kill them. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's something called the nocebo effect. I'm not sure. A lot of people have heard of the placebo effect, but there's this nocebo effect as well. Whereas if you're told something negative is going to happen to you, your body will manifest it. It's a very weird phenomenon. One of the
I know it's true.
people don't realize this how crazy this is. So there was an experiment done. I saw Dr. Robert Weil talking about this on Rogan, and they had taken subjects and they told them that they were going to give them a very small burn, right? And so they had this like instrument that was they were going to touch their arm with this red hot probe, and they were going to give them a micro burn. And it lit up red and it looked like a hot poker, and it wasn't hot at all. It was a light only, and they put it on people's skin, and they developed a water blister
There you go.
from the.
Yeah. Well, it, it's like with fire. I can put my hand through a flame actually if I'm not like if I don't believe the fire's going to burn me, it actually won't. I mean,
To, to
like
some
one's got to be
degree,
careful with that because but you can actually put your hand through flame. And disclaimer: don't try this at home, guys. But if you
correct.
actually don't believe it's going to burn you, it actually doesn't. I mean, I could show you now, but I mean, I will probably get a little.
Yeah,
If I hold there long,
there's definitely an
you see, you can
aspect
put your
where
hand through flame. So,
yeah, there's definitely an aspect of mind that I think people underappreciate, and so I think you're absolutely right on that fact. But got a little bit off track here. I'm going to pivot back a little bit because I wanted to
yeah,
talk to
sorry,
you.
back to
No,
Kirk.
you and I are both ADD, and we'll just meander all over the place. But I was so interested because I know that you
Yeah,
were.
and I'm seeing a therapist with the mental health fund, and she's actually wants to get me tested for ADHD. So yeah, let's go back to where we were. Brent, sorry.
Yep, yep. Well, hey, first of all, I think it's a superpower in some regards, so I wouldn't label that as negative. That's my superpower at work. I can, 'cause I watch your brain work, and it's like mine. I can context switch and think about things non-linearly. And for people that think like that, it makes a lot of sense. For people that are very structured in their thinking, they just get annoyed as hell talking to us. So it's like,
Yes, I
whatever.
know. Yeah.
But
Curious.
no, we were talking, kind of DMing a couple weeks ago about your upcoming interviews with DOJ, and so can you talk about that stuff? 'Cause I'm so interested to
Yeah, of
know
course.
what happened there.
Well, they actually wanted to fly here to come and interview. They
Yeah, of
got
course they
approval to
did.
come and fly here to meet me, but I've actually reached out to the lawyers helping, and it's actually very re-traumatizing. And I also don't know why they want to fly all the way here when I can tell them what I need to tell them on Zoom. Because, this has all actually made me very nervous. I was like, oh my God, is someone
Yeah.
going to try kill me? Is someone going to try like hypnotize me or brainwash me? Or, the whole thing has made me very anxious. And I've always been a bit of an anxious person, but, they seem like good people. But now the lawyers have said that they will be on any calls with with them. And, obviously want to help however I can. But the thing is, I don't understand what more I can do than tell them what I saw, because it's not like I was working with Epstein. I'm not like one of the business people there. I was taken there, and I'm telling people what I saw. I was obviously like never involved financially. He gave me a bit of money here and there, sort of, like 3 times, to get to the airport and stuff. But I think the people that they should be questioning are the people who are involved in these financial transactions, like $1 billion worth of human trafficking transactions between JP Morgan and Epstein's accounts. They should be looking at the recipients and the sender. It seems Epstein was the recipient, but they need to look through the senders and see what these transactions were for.
Yeah, and they
Because they
don't
were
want to do
clearly
that.
using
That's the thing
something.
that surprises me about, not surprises me, that maybe annoys me or irritates me about them reaching out to you, because it's not in good faith. Like, I know the Department of Justice, they are there to cover up for the Epstein class. They're there to manage the situation. And I think that I don't know. That's why I'm curious what they
Yeah, you're
asked
right.
you or what you talked about. Cause I'm like, they're obviously doing this engagement with you for nefarious purposes. There might be a PR veneer on top of it. Like, oh, we're talking to the victims. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. But it feels like to your point, like, I would not want to be in the same room with these people. Like the Epstein victims are disappearing. Like, they're no longer
Yes,
with us, and it's just a bunch of them. It's not just like one or two. It's a bunch that are no longer with us, and like,
that's horrific.
it's terrifying, So I'm curious, like, what did they ask you, if you can tell me? Because I
Well,
don't
it
know.
was the New Mexico Department of Justice. So they just wanted to know more about what happened in New Mexico. I haven't actually spoken to the General Department of Justice, in America, who released naked photographs that Epstein took of me. They were just asking, just sort of going over the facts of, what I saw there and what happened in New Mexico. And yeah, apparently they're going to be doing an investigation into it. So, I mean, let's hope that they do. But I think we all know that, these things are largely covered up. And, a lot of these, it's hard for these people to even do investigations when the people who are like running the world are in charge of the New Mexico. There's something very strange going on there, clearly.
Yeah, for sure.
And they should have
Particularly
investigated long
the
ago.
new owner of the Zorro Ranch too. You've been tracking that at all?
Who's the new owner now? I
He,
do remember someone,
I forgot his name, but
some rich family,
it's a
obviously a rich
Trump
family.
donor. He's part of Trump's inner circle, and he now owns the property.
It's highly suspicious.
It's very suspicious. Yeah, yeah.
I've noticed also things like that in Cape Town before because I used to sell property. And there were certain properties that belonged to very wealthy people, and they all got sold suddenly to an Indian liquor baron. And then he sold them all off to other people. It's almost like they didn't want people being in those properties. I actually shouldn't even mention all that because a little too close to home. But you know what I mean? They'll get like a middleman to buy the property if there's something like dodgy tunnels underneath until someone else can get the cash together to take over. I mean, I'm just imagining, that's what's happening. It would make
Yeah, yeah.
sense. But
And Zorro Ranch appears to be like one of those properties that could have that going on. If you look at the aerial view, there's like the house, and then there's like, what is that? Like a rock garden or some giant, and it just looks like there's something underneath it. I mean, and I know that with your claims about the potential, cloning and egg harvesting and stuff like that, I'm looking at this like, that looks like a pretty decent place to have some sort of underground lab doing shady shit.
well, what I realized recently is I was actually there for 2 weeks. They used to always move us around. I looked at my passport property and I was there for nearly 2 weeks. I don't even remember the room I stayed in. I've got a very good memory. I remember being in my cot as a baby. Like when they took me to the island, I remember very well where I was staying, but I can't really remember New Mexico very well. But I do remember seeing the UFO, and I remember meeting Michael Bay there, the movie producer.
Hmm.
I very much remember Epstein giving me like a sort of pelvic exam. That's the other thing. He wasn't like doing the usual sort of sexual abuse of taking me to the bedroom all the time there. It was like different. It was weird. And he gave me a pelvic exam and like touched me around. It was very creepy. But it wasn't like the usual thing before where he was taking me every 3 times a day into the bedroom. It was like at the end, before I was sent home, he sort of felt me around the area, and it was like a doctor would. It was very, very weird. And, I was
That's
obviously shattered and traumatized at the time. But, over the years, obviously, once I got the settlement money, I could stop like working. I was obviously working very hard and had an e-commerce business, but I had a bit more time. I mean, this is years later, obviously. I mean, I was a mess for many years after that. But I mean, in my 30s, I started a business. But then when I got the settlement money, I had more time to sort of step back and sort of look at what had happened. And none of it really, it's starting to make more sense, but it was just very hard putting the pieces together.
so timeline wise. When were you in New Mexico? Because I've always wondered this too. Because I've heard your story on a bunch of other shows in my previous show, um, and it seems that amnesia thing. There's something missing with the New Mexico property, and the New Mexico property for me, from based off your testimony and everybody else that I've listened to, seems to be something much weirder going on than at like the island or at the Manhattan property or the Palm Beach property. So like
It was very
when did that visit happen? Right? Because I'm
it,
trying to
it,
like go ahead.
piece, yeah, together. It was June, July, 2004. So I think I arrived there around, I can't remember the exact date. I think it was like the 26th of June or something that I arrived there. And then I left like sort of on the 6th of July or something. It was, but wait, it was 2 weeks. So I've got that wrong. It was like June 20th to like the 5th of July. So it was actually after July 4th. Which is interesting because they never celebrated things like that. They didn't like
Interesting.
celebrate Independence Day or, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think Epstein's got primary loyalty to Israel, so that's not surprising to me. But what happened before and after? Like, where were you before the New Mexico visit, and where did you go after?
I was in Cape Town and then I came back to Cape Town.
Okay, got it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
He used to fly me back from here.
got it, got it. And so after that, though, you didn't have any of the sort of amnesia, like everything made sense before, everything made sense after, as far as your like
Yeah.
retrospective view. Like it just seems like a little bit of a black hole when you visited New Mexico. Is that right?
Yeah. It was, yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember certain things there, of course, but I don't remember it as well as I would with other things. And, I also had the memory wake up in a lab there, you know.
Right. What now? This
Um,
is a
I,
question I've got for you because I heard you speak about it on other shows, and you've told me personally. I don't understand how the UFO related to waking up in the lab. Was that the same time frame, or was this a different incident?
I don't really know. That's the thing because
Mm,
the lab thing was just such a weird thing. It's like I work, it was like it almost felt like it could have been a dream, but it wasn't a dream. You know what I mean? It definitely wasn't a dream because like I have very vivid dreams which are long and everything. But it was like I woke up and I was in this weird place. I was strapped down like naked on a table. Well, not strapped down, but I was paralyzed, and I was naked and I couldn't talk, and I saw all these weird people, these six people in hazmat suits around me, three on one side, three on that side, and then there was like a female doctor by my head, and she said, "Don't worry, everything's okay," and she came by my neck, and then I was out again. So, I mean, I don't know if it happened exactly when I saw the UFO. I don't think it happened when I saw the UFO because when I saw the UFO, I was like locked out of the property, and I was trying to get back in, and I was very nervous. I went out to have a cigarette, and then because we were watching The Rock, this movie that Michael Bay had made. Epstein
hmm.
wanted us all to watch it. Michael Bay wasn't watching it with us, but it was me and Epstein and other girls and some of the young female staff he had. And I was locked out there for about 20 minutes, and I was very freaked out because, like, I looked in the sky and I saw these three lights like this, and they started spinning, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and they were very bright, and they were quite close. They weren't far. It was quite near. So I thought, shit, I want to get back inside, and then I couldn't get back in. And I went around the property and knocked on the door where they were watching the movie because, it's a big property. The front door had locked me out. So I had to walk all the way around there. So, I mean, it was quite a frightening time. But I mean, for all I know, it could have happened there. But I think it more sort of happened from when I was sleeping that I got taken there. You know what I mean?
Got it. Yep. Yep.
Because
No,
I mean, I would notice if I'm conscious and then I'm out. I would piece it together. But I think that happened it happened definitely in the same sort of time frame when the time I was there. But it wasn't like because Charlie Kirk said that I got abducted by a spaceship,
exactly
and
why I'm
I
asking.
never said that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly
I
why I'm
I never
asking.
said I was abducted by a spaceship.
And this is why I'm so
Yeah, I
angry at
don't know.
Charlie Kirk. This is why I'm so angry, because this is the trick that he played. At least this is what I believe after listening to tons of his content, knowing that he's not a moron and knowing that there's legal liability for defaming people, right? It's like, and that's why I asked you specifically in DMs, like, did you ever say you were abducted by UFO? I've never heard you say that. I've only heard you
No.
say, I saw a UFO on Epstein's ranch. And then also at Epstein's ranch, you had woken up in a room and there was a bunch of people with the hazmat suits, the doctors, whatever type of, like, I've heard those two things.
Yeah.
And what I think he did, and this is the dirty trick that I believe that he played, which is he said something which he knew to be untrue, but it was defensible. Meaning he could point and say, well, this is what I thought, that's what she meant. I thought that she saw a UFO and then was abducted, and the people in the hazmat suits were aliens. I don't know. Like, I think that he had enough cover to be like, well, I just had some facts wrong. But I think he did it on purpose, because I think what he wanted to do is, if anybody, because I've seen this, because when I've posted, I've defended you online about this, and people will come in the comments and they'll point out the fact that you claimed to see Epstein shapeshift, right? Like, and that's a well-known thing. I think what he wanted to do is to discredit you further by having people poke into that story and be like, oh, this is a crazy person. Like, she really can't be trusted. Now, it's not just abducted by UFO. This is like even further out there story. And that's what
Yeah,
pisses
you're
me
right.
off is I think it was that is the trick I think he was playing. And it's disgusting to me. It is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, because I saw Epstein turn into something on the island. That was like in the room when he took me there. I mean, I only saw it once, and it's very hard to explain it, but I saw it. And yeah, and with Kirk saying that I never said I was abducted. What I would say most likely is that I was actually taken underground in New Mexico when I woke up. From like the memory of where I was, I wouldn't say I was on a spaceship for that when that happened. I mean, I don't think that at all. I mean, I don't know. But I would have said it would have been something underground or something when I woke up like that. Because also it wasn't like I was standing there and I saw the UFO and then the next thing I was on the UFO. I saw the UFO and I got back inside the house, and then that either that night or the next night, somewhere in between that time, I have this weird memory. And the thing is, I couldn't discuss it with anyone there or anything. It was like, and
Yeah,
even when I
right.
came home, I couldn't discuss it with my mum, or I couldn't say anything to anyone. So I wasn't able to actually analyze it and put it all together. And I mean, it was also confusing that it's actually very hard to put it together. I mean, even still today, I don't really know what happened. I don't know what they really did. But I do, I've managed to put a few things together, and I have my memories. And then, there's information that one can look through also about how, like, there were doctors stealing eggs in the 2000, in like the year 2000. There's an article where there were doctors stealing eggs and selling them on the black market. Even recently, there were some doctors who were found with fetuses in their suitcases,
Yeah.
live fetuses. So if people could be, an amateur, like not amateur, but like if any person could do that, imagine what Epstein and people like that are capable of.
Yeah. I mean,
And I'm
obviously
pretty sure they've got a farm.
yeah, obviously he's got a bunch of dark money behind him, right? Like that he's not a financier, some college dropout fake math teacher, what, like, it's a cover story. Like, he's being financed with some dark money. Who knows what they're capable of, especially if you're untethered from all of the strictures around, like the ethical strictures around the traditional scientific research endeavors, right? Like, there's certain ethical things you can't cross. But in his world, like, you can do whatever the hell you want. I shudder to think what type of things that they were engaged in, because we already know from his
Yeah, I mean,
emails that he was involved in eugenics, right? He literally was like a Nazi style eugenicist, right? That's what he was looking to do. So
I mean, they found dead bodies. Yeah. I
wait,
mean, in
what?
New Mexico, they found bodies in New Mexico, and I mean, it's quite clear that this man, if someone was going to try get in his way, he was going to knock them off. I mean, it's obvious. Come on, how did he get away with it for so long? There were obviously a lot of people who got murdered along the way. And that's why I was always terrified, and I didn't even want to speak about it or anything until he actually apparently died. I spent my life actually terrified from it all. And I didn't want to take him on. Like, it was quite clear that you don't take people like that on. Like, but thank goodness things are starting to change and there's more truth coming out. But back in the day, there was no way I was going to be talking about any of that. I would have been locked up in an asylum or not, or murdered. It was. I mean, look what's happened to Virginia. Go further, mate. main victim who spoke out, like she's not alive anymore. And, like you're saying, there are many more. And I mean, God knows how many other people have been killed actually along the way. I mean, even with the Clinton Scottish body count, and I met Epstein while he was with Clinton, and there's, these people in positions of power and control, they have very quick ways of cleaning up any sort of, anything that's coming their way, they'll sort it out. To protect themselves, they will kill someone to protect their life or their reputation.
Without thinking twice. Yeah, that's. I don't think that's
Mm.
even a question in anyone's mind. But I guess the point I was getting back to is like I keep getting back to this Charlie thing. It bothers me so much that somebody would attack. And it's like you're not a rando. You're not like, oh, I did it for the money. Like you're one of the most well-established Epstein victims. Your story's out there. The case has been adjudicated. You've gotten some awards from this state. You've gotten some awards from the J.P. Morgan suit that, by the way, was brought by the U.S. Virgin Islands. It wasn't you. They're the ones that uncovered $1 billion in trafficking money going through his accounts, right? Like this is not you seeking fame. Clearly, you're not seeking fortune. But yes, you were compensated. But to disparage you because of you've said some weird things, and frankly, that is weird shit. And I think you'll acknowledge it too. You're like, hey, I saw what I saw.
It is.
And you
understand. If someone told me this, I also wouldn't believe them. I'd be like, well, I think, there would be a part of me that believed them, but then I'd also be like, well, I probably would believe them actually, but I'd question it. I would certainly question it. I mean, without a doubt, because anyone who doesn't question it,
context matters, right? And so Charlie said this, like I said, the week he died. This is like the Epstein thing had already run its course to a large degree. Files had been released. We sort of knew that this was some crazy shit. And just because you saw a UFO, that means you're a crazy person. Like that doesn't track to me, particularly because he was pushing the White House's disclosure about UFOs too. Like there's going to be UFO so this is like in the public discourse at the same time that he's using like, well, Juliette saw a UFO on Epstein's property as a mechanism to try to destroy your character, or at least cast aspersions towards your character and believability. Like that bothers me.
Yeah, like why would I just go out and say stuff like that? Because some people think that I've been like programmed or paid to say that. Like I definitely haven't been paid to say it, okay? And the reason I say it is because it's the truth. I don't go around lying or making up stories. Like I'm not MK Ultra'd. I'm not mind controlled. I'm actually quite the opposite of mind controlled. I don't, I hope, but I wouldn't just say something. I said what I said. I said my truth, and it's actually caused me a lot of trouble in my own life. Like, my family and my brothers don't like that I'm talking out about this. They think I'm putting our family in danger. For many years, a lot of people thought, okay, that I've gone a bit mad, but when the files came out, and it was like actually vindicating, like I've actually felt nuclear relief since the files came out, apart from the naked photos of me they put there to try to throw me under the bus and emails. They didn't share all the emails, but, they only shared some. But the truth is that that's what happened to me. And the files show that there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. Because initially they were trying to say there was sex trafficking girls to presidents. I wasn't sex trafficked to anyone except for Epstein. So it just shows that there's a lot more going on here. And they were trying to spin the story to just be like these girls were sexually abused, but there's a lot more that went on. There are many branches to these criminal organizations.
Yeah,
and I just told everyone what actually happened. And I don't know. They could have drugged me for me to see that. I don't know, but I saw it. I swear on my life, that's what I saw. I swear on my family's life, that is what I saw.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at with you. Is like I don't know how that happened, but I believe you saw it. Like I've heard you enough times. I've talked to you. I've gotten to know you personally. Like I trust that you saw what you saw. How that happened, I have no fucking idea. But I do know that this situation.
There's no benefit for me here. Saying this like there's no benefit for me except for people looking at me with like their eyebrow up, like this girl's bonkers. People are going to see one of the reasons because you'll see the truth coming out.
That's one of the reasons I believe you, because I know that is something that I know you're a smart girl, and like that like me saying that maybe is going to damage my credibility in some people's eyes, but you say it anyway, right? Which I'm like, I appreciate that. That's awesome. It takes bravery.
Some people say if I was going to lie, I could have said that I was made to have sex with Bill Clinton. I could have said I was sexually have sex with Bill Richardson. I could have said that I'd been men, I could have made a whole story about all these men that I'd been trafficked to. But I don't make up stories. I was trafficked to Epstein and other weird stuff happened there. And that's what happened. And that's why I started, speaking out more because, the narrative was, that's why a lot of the victims haven't been interviewed because one of the lawyers even told me that only 10% of the girls were actually trafficked to other men. There was a whole lot of other stuff that these people were up to, and to be traveling young girls around like that is very suspicious and weird. And like even when it happened, my granny, she's not here anymore, unfortunately, but she said she was worried that people are gonna think that I was like a girlfriend of his or something.
Mm.
I was never his girlfriend. I didn't even see his bedrooms at any of the houses. I never saw his bedroom, even. I was taken into like a little side room with him. I never, so I was not allowed. We weren't, he never took me for dinner or bought me things. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a girlfriend. Like a billionaire who has a girlfriend is gonna like, you hear these stories of billionaires buying their girlfriends sports cars and nothing like that
Right,
ever
right.
happened. You know what I mean? So it was like I was taken there as like a sex slave, but like it was more than that. They were doing something else, like genetic experiments, perhaps taking eggs, also trying to do mind control. I think they might have tried stuff like that on me, but apparently they have to start that stuff when people are a lot younger. And I was 20 when I was taken there. When I was 14, Elite Model Management tried to take me overseas, but my mum wouldn't let me travel. But I suddenly realized recently, goddamn, if I was taken when I was 14, I probably would have landed up straight at Epstein.
Yeah,
But when I
probably.
was 14, my mum wouldn't allow it, so they came back when I was 20. And when my mum couldn't stop it. My mum was worried, and she believed, because he spoke to her on the phone and it seemed like so legitimate, and as any mum would be, she wanted to make sure I'd be safe. But I was 20 years old and my mum couldn't dash my dreams. I'd been promised a modeling career, and it seemed most people would believe it. If you meet someone with the president of America, you're going to hop on the, when they arrange your ticket and arrange they say they're arranging a modeling agency, you're going to believe it. That I was conned by them, and they were master manipulators. I mean, they conned people who were highly intelligent and very wealthy. It was very easy for them to con a young 20-year-old girl from South Africa.
Well, for sure, and like you met them when they were on the trip with what Chris Tucker and Bill Clinton. Like he was clearly connected. And he's
And
less wet.
Spacey.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey. He's good friends with Les
Yeah.
Wexner. So I mean, the claim that hey, we can get you in. Like, come on, we're tied into all these modeling agencies. Like that's real. Like that's very easily
Yeah.
verifiable. It's not like you're being conned by some shady used car salesman. This was like top tier.
Well, and I went for a modeling casting with my modeling book. It was like I'd been for a few modeling castings. I just started doing modeling. I was studying psychology and philosophy at UCT, the University of Cape Town. But I did modeling on the side to earn an income. So, I mean, I actually went there with my modeling book. And while the three girls posed as modeling agents, Sarah Kellen, Andrea Metrovich, and another girl, Cindy Lopez, and then Bill Clinton walked through the room behind me while these girls were looking at my book. And he said, "Hi, everyone." It seemed so legitimate, you know. But yeah. Anyway, I'm just glad to be alive. I'm very grateful to be alive. And it's been really, really hard actually going through all this. But, it's also like since everything's come out and speaking publicly, and it's really affected my health and my happiness. But, I'm determined to get well and happy again. And I'm not going to let them hurt me anymore.
Yeah, good for you, and I hope that's the case. And I don't, it's not healthy to obsess about this stuff, but I also think that there needs to be some voices demanding accountability. And it's like I think we know we're probably not going to get it, but it feels like society at large has kind of accepted that, and that pisses me off. It's like they did the Epstein files release, and there was some stuff there, but it's like more than half of them are not released, and it was overly redacted. Um, and they're just saying like we're done. What even though the
Yeah, they
court.
redact the criminals and then they like put naked photos that Epstein took of me when I'm 20. It's like, how does that help anyone? Is the DOJ, is it like a pornography site now? Because like surely they should be redacting that. Luckily the Epstein wiki sleuths actually saw the photo and they said, "Oh my God, is this you?" Because otherwise I wouldn't have even known. And apparently there were a lot more as well, because this guy I went to school with went and saw that there were more because he saw that I was complaining about it and he went online and found more that they put there. I didn't see those. But it's
Yeah,
just an
because
absolute cheat.
it's been consistent. It's like it's attack the victims and protect the predators. That's what the Department of
Yeah,
Justice
and
is
how does it
doing.
help anyone to have naked photos of a young girl released? It helps no one. And yeah, and like you said, and they go redact names. They also haven't released all the emails because they released like two of mine to make me look bad. They didn't release the ones where he emailed me in 2017 asking if Sarah Ransom was a friend of mine because she was taking them on at the time legally. And in 2019, a month before he died, he sent me an email asking for nudes. He said nudes, question mark. But I never sent him any nudes. I never ever sent him nudes. And all the time, recently I actually realized I was actually in contact with Epstein for 17 years. How
Whoa.
creepy is that? I met him in 2002. And then, by 2019, he was still emailing me. Like I used to also email him sometimes when I was like, had a few too many drinks or when I was having a bad time. It's like I would sort of dissociate and then email him but not a lot, and it was
What
just,
what do you think the reason was for that? I know you're I don't want to psychoanalyze, but I'm curious. Like, why would you continue to communicate with him afterwards?
well, it wasn't very often. It was like once a year. You know what I mean? It was like once a year after I'd had a few drinks. Or like, for instance, once my one boyfriend, he didn't believe that I knew Epstein. So I said, yes, I do.
Uh,
So I sent an email so that he would see that Epstein would email back. Um, Also, I guess I had a sort of Stockholm syndrome in a way where
that's what I was
like,
wondering. Yeah.
well, I was petrified of him, but also the thing is that, like the media said that there were all these 14-year-olds there, and I never saw any 14-year-olds around Epstein. So he made it out like the media is lying about him, they're out to get him. And he also made me and other girls feel like we were useless. Like, because I smoked weed and stuff, he said I was like just a junkie. And he made it out like we were like very lucky to even be around him. So he made it out like it was my fault, everything that happened. You know how like master manipulators can do
Yeah,
that and
for sure.
narcissists and and he was probably one of the, I mean, I'm sure most people even watching have been in, had experiences with people who are bad. But I mean, he was really bad. Okay. And, and then I just thought it was better to be in touch and be friendly because also before I was sent back, he said that he worked with the CIA. He had my
Hmm.
family's name on a list. He said a girl who accused him of rape, he planted drugs in her apartment, sent her to prison. So I didn't want him to think that I was coming after him because I was worried for my family's safety. So I just wanted to be friendly. And also in my mind, you see, I didn't, I, s- it was only when he died that, and then all died. And
Let
then
me air
after I
quotes
had my
died.
therapy and I managed to sort of, it was like he had like a hold over people. And like, luckily his hold over me wasn't as bad as obviously with other people. Like he offered me money to stay there or money to find girls for him, but I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be at home with my mum and my animals. So, because he didn't like animals, and I love animals, and also I just didn't want to be there because I didn't like being there. It was very nerve wracking, and I didn't like that. Even though it was like a very rich life with like chefs and food, I didn't want to be there. Like I rather would be at home with a tin of soup. You know what I mean? Where I'm happy and comfortable. And yeah, and I guess I just kept in touch with him because it was just like the whole thing was it really affected my brain very badly, and I mean, he's affected a lot of people very badly. And I just thought it was better to be in touch. But they didn't release like they only released like only like two emails, and they're like about 30.
Mm.
They only released the two to really make me look bad. Because there were other emails I sent him asking him for book recommendations because I thought he was an intelligent man and would be able to recommend good books. It was like arbitrary emails like that. But but basically what I'm saying is that the DOJ didn't release everything because I've got all my emails from between Epstein and they only released the two to make me look bad. They didn't release all the rest. So that brings into question everything that they've released. It shows that they haven't released all the information. Because if I can see that only two of my 30 emails were released, what about Clinton? What about Trump? What about all these other guys who are in contact with him? If they're going to be selective over my emails, they're definitely going to be selective over other people's emails. And again, I mean, I could share all my emails. I already have. I've shared them all with the lawyers. Everything's been shared of mine. So
Is there anything in there that would potentially fall under the reasons for them to legitimately redact or not release that you're aware of?
no, no, not at all. It's like
Mm.
arbitrary emails, like asking for book recommendations, or when he asked me for nude photos. I mean, that's kind of weird. They should have released that, but they didn't. Also, when he asked me if I was a friend of Sarah Ransom's who was taking him on legally, they didn't release those. They just released the ones where I said, I'm so sorry for what he's been going through and sending lots of love. Because, I was very nervous about it all. And And I just thought, like, I don't want him coming after me, and my
For sure.
family. I was scared. And then um, when he died, I started doing more research into what had happened to me, and I started to realize that there were victims who weren't alive anymore. I didn't realize that at the time. I didn't realize how evil they were. We didn't have the internet back then, and also it was like saying I compartmentalized it. I just got on with my life, put it in a box in the corner, never spoke about him. I never even told my friends about him. There's only one person I told, was my ex-boyfriend from New York. I told him about it. Otherwise, I never told anyone for 20 years. I kept it all bottled up inside. And, I suppose when he sort of proudly passed away and then I was given the settlement money, I had more time to sort of heal and see therapists. And I started to realize how evil they really were. And also starting to realize, like, all those weird things that happened to me there, and trying to piece it together, because it was just so confusing. And also back in the day, like, we were a lot more naive and innocent in the 2000s. We didn't have internet. We couldn't do as much research then. So I just sort of started to dig deeper, and then I realized I had to speak out for the victims. The victims who are dead, and also the victims too traumatized to speak. And because I wanted to just stay away from all of this. I had reporters contacting me because my name's on the flight log. And I just wanted to stay away from it all. And then I realized I had to speak out for those. I suddenly started to realize how evil they were, and a lot more. Like, I didn't realize they'd taken my ex when I was younger. It was only like when I had that time to actually look through what happened and piece it together. I was like, oh my God, did they take my ex? And then I really, that's why before I was like a bit more friendly, because I didn't realize what the evil of what he'd done.
Mm.
Because it was too confusing. And I came back from there shattered, really. I came back. I used to have panic attacks after coming back from there. I was hospitalized with panic attacks like 10 times after that. I don't even
Wow.
like talking about them, but I don't need a hospital. I've never been to a hospital apart from that time. I've never like broken a bone, never had a stitch. Touch wood. Well, actually, I did have a stitch once, but anyway. But it was after giving birth. Sorry. Oh my God. But I've always been very healthy actually, and like before I was taken there, I was a very healthy, happy girl, and I came back a wreck. I was put on 3 tranquilizers a day.
Mm.
So it's like I was just pushing it all down, and then finally I had time to sort of breathe and get well. And also because people were realizing, also when the documentary Filthy Rich came out, a lot of people, like, I was so happy when it came out because my family could understand, okay, this man's really bad, because people didn't really know a lot about him in the past, only recently more. I mean, since like 2019, a lot more's been coming out.
Yeah, totally. I want to talk about the trauma a little bit and the healing. I know you wanted to discuss that, and I'm curious about it too, as being somebody who's been through extreme trauma and have been spending the last part of my life trying to recover from that. I want to know kind of like how this affected you and what have you been doing to try to sort of pull yourself back together? Because this is, like I said, it shatters people, and trying to put back those pieces is a long term effort.
Well, you know what, actually, it's such a good question, because I think a part of my healing journey has actually been speaking out and like doing interviews like this, and you know, also being able to share like information that I've found out with others, and I obviously have a lot more research to do, and also there's the mental health fund that they're doing for the Epstein victims. I was too nervous to go ahead with it because 2 of the victims told me they're just trying to spy on us. They're going to be putting us on pills. But anyway, I've established that that's actually not the fact. It doesn't seem like it. So I think I'm going to be going ahead. I'm busy in the process of sort of submitting, because I've got a psychologist that I used to see in Cape Town. She's known me through my 20s and 30s. I didn't go a lot, but obviously when I could afford, I did. And my brother helped pay for it, and also had a boyfriend who helped pay. But yeah, they offer, it's like a $10 million mental health program fund, and they're even going to be paying for like yoga and extra things apparently. So I've decided I'm going to try go ahead with it, as long as like they're not going to try like medicate me and toss me in a loony bin or something. But luckily in South Africa we've got and also I trust the therapist who I've been seeing. I saw in my 20s. She knows my history. I never even mentioned Epstein to her until he died. But anyway, I'm thinking to go ahead with that. But I mean, before that, what I started doing was actually meditating. I started, I'd have a bath and light a candle, and also like almost like a form of baptism. I'll like go under the water and like breathe out like anything that just breathe out energy that's hurting me, and then when you come up, you breathe in goodness, and like look at your candle. I started doing meditating, and also my son Kai, he's on the spectrum, as they say, but he's starting to talk more and more. I'm so proud of him, and he's so healthy. He's never needed doctors or anything like that. He's just been incredibly healthy. I'm blessed like that, but so lucky. But Kai's taken time for him to talk, and it's, he hasn't been able to go to school yet, so it's Kai's helped heal me too, because you know he's this amazing little angel, and he's just so loving, and yeah. So being a mum has healed me, and also having friends like you, Brent, has helped heal me.
Thank you.
And there's some amazing people who are there, and thank you, yeah, for being there, because after an experience with such bad people, it's it's hard to trust, and I think just yeah, and also I've been starting doing like more cooking and actually making videos of my cooking, and I like painting. I've been trying to find ways to sort of get better. So, I mean, used to do yoga, but like I should start doing that again. I'm going to. But I mean, breathing. Breathing is the best way to heal. To breathe out the pain and breathe in goodness.
Yeah, and there's a scientific basis for that too. There's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, and doing that breath work actually calms down your parasympathetic nervous system, gets you into a rest and digest mode as opposed to that anxious, on edge fight or
Fight
flight,
or flight.
which is what
Yeah.
people who have experienced trauma endure. I'm not sure people realize the physical impact of trauma. They've done brain scans on people who have had traumatic experiences, and their amygdala is a part of your brain that is your fight or flight. That is like recognition of bad thing happened generally, and or yeah, sorry, specifically, and then generalizing it. Meaning, like if you got attacked by a bear, you know your amygdala registers every time you see a bear, you remember being attacked by it, and so you're constantly on edge. You're constantly in that vigilant state.
Yeah.
And they've done
Well,
fMRIs on people's brains, and the size of the amygdala for people that have had a trauma history is like double the size of a regular person's brain, right? Like, so there's actually causes physical changes in the brain. This isn't just like a psychological phenomenon.
it makes total sense. And that's also like with the whole Epstein thing, it's like I see his face daily. There's no way of escaping him. I can't, it's like if someone's abused, they can, they don't have to see this person's face every day. So seeing
Mm.
his face every day, it's very hard and it's re-triggering. And yeah, I mean, getting over trauma is not easy. Hey, I think just also getting a lot of rest helps. I've been trying to sleep more and eat healthily, because our bodies are amazing healing machines. And I suppose just healing trauma, and also writing helps, like writing things down and letting the thoughts out. And but I mean, the way to heal from trauma, it takes a while. There's no overnight cure for trauma.
Definitely not. But I will say this, or at least I'll ask you this: Have you investigated any psychedelic therapies for trauma?
Well, I have had magic mushrooms before, actually. I tried them for my first time when I was 40. A friend of mine had some, and they actually helped a lot. But I mean, obviously,
Hmm.
people have got to be careful with the mushrooms. But and I do smoke marijuana. I do smoke weed. I mean, I've been smoking weed since I was 14, but not a huge amount. But yeah, but I have tried the mushrooms, and I would say they are highly beneficial. But
It helped
people
me a
must make
lot.
sure they get them from the right place. You've got to be very careful. You don't just go hopping through the forest picking mushrooms, guys.
Yeah, yeah, guys, don't be stupid. But yeah, if you haven't noticed from my podcast art, that's been really central to my recovery is psychedelics, right? I think they're incredibly beneficial. I think the scientific studies by Johns Hopkins University and University was it Imperial College London, Dr. Robert Carhart Harris, like there's just tons of empirical research that shows they're incredibly beneficial for healing trauma, smoking cessation, alcoholism, end of life anxiety for cancer patients. Like it's a really important therapy. But what I would encourage you to look into potentially is two things: ibogaine, number one, which actually comes from Africa, and number two is ayahuasca. But
I've
ibogaine,
heard of the ayahuasca. That sounds quite hectic, but I could try it. I know that there are places around here, yeah, because I live in like sort of like, where I live, people are very earthy and amazing people. So, but up again, I haven't actually heard of an ayahuasca, but I mean, I'm nervous to try these things. Like But I know that it's natural. Like I've heard of someone also, a friend of mine did the frog thing. What's the frog poison?
The combo?
Cambo. Cambo, yes. That sounds terrifying. I definitely don't want to do that one.
Yeah, you have to like burn your arm and then like roll a stick that's been
No,
rubbed through
I don't want
frog
to do
venom.
anything
Like,
like that.
no, no, nothing like that. But
Yeah, but
I will say this: this is my pitch for ibogaine. It comes from Africa. It comes from a root of some bush or something like that. It's highly psychedelic, one of the most potent psychedelics ever. And what it apparently does, it's most beneficial for addiction. Somebody who's like particularly like a heroin addict, somebody who's really deeply
cigarette.
addicted to opiates, and it basically rewires your whole brain. It takes you back almost to like your childhood, and then you kind of
Being
like go.
as a fetus. Back to being a
Yeah,
fetus.
yeah, it does, and it basically replays your sort of life. You kind of see your life history roll back through your eyes, and it rewires everything and completely resets your brain. It's really good for people with trauma.
Sounds
There's
good.
been it's a little bit more dangerous than ayahuasca or mushrooms, though. I think there's some potential issues with I think it's blood pressure or cardiac risk or something like that. And one of the things that's difficult is a lot of these places aren't. It's illegal, right? So it's very
Yeah, they're
difficult to
not
get.
registered and they're not doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go to. I actually looked into it.
Yeah,
You can
but
go to Portugal, and there's other places that sort of have this like ibogaine tourism kind of thing. But I've heard a lot of it's kind of dodgy, and you have to be really careful and make sure that you got the reputable place. But I think that it's really an emerging area of research. That I think that somebody like yourself, who's got like, we're not talking like my dad was a bit mean to me growing up and had an alcohol problem. It's like deep trauma, right? Like this is like for like serious stuff. So I would at least encourage you to take a look at that,
yeah,
because it feels
great.
like
I'll
that's
definitely.
something that's going to be really big coming up.
It's amazing all these natural things that can heal, and people go and take, get medicated. And meanwhile, there's like, and again, one's always like got to be careful, like you say. But I mean, I've tried the magic mushrooms a few times and I think they're amazing. The first time you take them is like, well, your brain goes like inside out and it's so nerve wracking because I only took them when I was 40 for the first time. But then, yeah, they definitely are very helpful. But again, it's everything in moderation. I think some people, especially when they've got addiction problems, I've seen this happen, like where people will just go eat like 3 big mushrooms and they're like, ah, don't do that, guys.
Well, here's a question: how high a dose did you take? Do you measure it? Do you know how much you took?
I mean, when I first had, I only had a very little bit, but I mean, I've had times when I ate like a big piece, a big mushroom, like what's the usual dose? Like 1.5 gram or
Well, there is no usual dose. I think there's there's everything from microdose, which is something that I do pretty regularly. It's just
yeah.
like like quarter of a gram or something, like a very
I like
small amount.
microdose. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'll actually put it in
yeah,
my
because there were
coffee.
times when I had more.
Yeah, so you can basically grind it up, put it in like a French press, and let it steep in your coffee, and it helps with my ADD, helps with a whole bunch of other things. But that's a microdose. Then there's like
Okay.
like a 1.5 grams. Like that's nothing. That's like a very
Yeah, I mean, I probably
hardly
have had like a
perceptual.
bigger. dose. I'm always a bit nervous, being a mum and all. I've got to be responsible,
Well, for
But
sure.
yeah, but I do think that they're highly beneficial for people, but again, people need to find the right source, get the right ones. Because I remember trying a different kind once, and it wasn't very nice. It was like, sometimes I think they can even lace these things with, they can like put drugs in them or something. Just
Correct, and
I
that's
like
one
natural.
of. Yeah, and so it's interesting thing. Here's just, this is not advice to people, but it is possible to grow your own. And so spores are typically, at least in the United States, spores are typically legal. So you can buy spore syringes online, and then you can, if you're so inclined, you have the ability to grow them yourself, and then you know where they come from, and that's a pretty good approach in my view,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
or there's places in the South like where I live where because they grow on cow dung, right? So you can actually go out in the forest if you know exactly. And by the way, be careful. There's certain ways that you can reliably identify them, but mushrooms clearly are dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing, you could get yourself in a bad situation. So I advise everyone, like,
Yeah,
don't do that if
yeah, because
you're not 100% certain of what you're doing. But ultimately, I think it's important for people to know source of what they're getting. They understand what it is, and then dosage is important too. I've heard a lot of people like, "Well, I just threw like 3 of them in my mouth and then hope for the best." And like, I always use like a very
no, you
small
don't do
grams.
that. You take
Yeah,
a small piece and you test the effect. You don't just go nunk and eat the whole thing. That's just dumb. You know, with anything like that, one should just have a little bit and to test the reaction and, you know.
Yep. Yep. And then to talk about dosages, like the first one, by the way, I did my first time when I was like 43. I actually had a therapist that,
We also only tried later in age,
yeah, I've
yeah.
never been a drug guy. I'm not somebody, I don't smoke cannabis.
Me neither.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do anything, but I had a real problem with it from my childhood trauma that came up in therapy, and I was dealing with it. And my therapist was specialized in long-term meditation and psychedelics, but he was like clearly couldn't, at least in the United States, couldn't say you should consider this. So he just sort of roundabout in the discussion is
Yeah,
like,
in Iraq, what an amazing guy to tell you like that, you know?
yeah, he kind of like nudge,
Because
nudge,
that's
wink,
bullshit
wink.
that
He's like,
doctors can't. Yeah.
he would even say like, I can't tell you to whatever, but you might want to look into Dr. Roland Griffith's research. Write that name down, go look him up. And I did, and all the stuff from Johns Hopkins University and the psilocybin trials came up, and he knew I was a dork, so I would just go into it. So yeah, I did that, and I did like my first dose was 3.5 grams, and that's like a medium dose. That was enough to sufficiently wake me up to like, oh shit, there's something really
Yeah,
strange
it's
going
quite
on here.
frightening.
It is
No,
frightening.
for
It is,
sure.
but
You feel
it's,
like you're gonna die sometimes. When you first take it, it's like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I'm going mad. But then it sort of puts everything right again in one's mind, you know?
yeah,
It was
there's a
amazing.
cycle. There's a cycle, I think, when you're on the come up, it's like all of a sudden like, oh shit, like this is, really intense. You peak, and then I think there's this moment most people that I talk to have, which is you're instantly aware of all your bullshit and everything, all your problems and all the ways that you're failing. You feel like the worst person in the world for like about an hour. And then, like I said, it sets you down. It's kind of like, all right, now you see the issue here. Go out and try to be a better person. Like there's this really like nice effect at the end. It's a very nice come down. You usually have like an afterglow for a couple of days. You feel pretty good about yourself. And you really try to be better. And that's why I don't understand why this stuff is illegal. That just blows my mind. I've never met
But
anybody.
didn't, didn't Trump just legalize mushroom?
He did not. No, no, he didn't even
I thought he
legalize
did. My mum said he
cannabis.
did.
No, there was he reclassified cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, but only in certain circumstances. It's not a blanket reclassification. So like the headline was Trump reclassifies marijuana, but ultimately like it benefits a lot of
He
the
didn't actually
companies.
do it.
Yeah,
He
it
must
benefits
have
a lot of
got
the
told.
corporations that are doing cannabis sales and stuff, but it doesn't really. It allows them to be banked in certain things, but for the average person, like it doesn't really help a lot. Like if I have cannabis here in Tennessee, I'm going to prison. It's a felony. Like that's just
That's
the way
such
it is.
bullshit. It's just so ridiculous. I mean, sorry. It's like,
It is
meanwhile,
like
wasn't Clinton like bringing in cocaine through Arkansas?
he absolutely was using that was Epstein related. That was the same plane, I believe, that was involved in the Iran Contra affair. Like
Well, they were definitely moving something. I mean, the way that they moved around so quickly, so frequently, and no one checked the luggage. And that's another thing, sorry, my naughty dogs. But Epstein didn't need to bring luggage because he had clothes at each property, but they would always have all this luggage. Why
oh,
did they have
really?
luggage? Yeah,
That's
they used to
interesting.
have
I've
all this
never heard that.
luggage. And I'm like, why did they have luggage? The billionaire with all these properties, you don't carry your clothes across, do you?
Maybe it was beef jerky and grape soda. I don't know.
Or something weird. Well, I mean, apparently this one plane had a weird hatch which could like release things. It was like an unusual airplane with a hatch. A friend of mine
Mm.
did some research into that.
So just
So
dump
I mean,
something in the
they
ocean
could
while you're
easily like
flying?
drop something. They could drop a body in the ocean. They could drop drugs at a certain location. And also once when we were flying from Paris to New York, we stopped in Newfoundland, which actually was very weird. I never realized, but it's like you don't usually do a stopover in Newfoundland from Paris to New York. And then the engine like froze up when we were trying to leave there. But why were they stopping there? They were obviously dropping something off. And it was very creepy and weird. It was like in the middle of nowhere. It was so cold. But we only stayed at the airport. And I got off the plane to have a cigarette. And I was so cold. You usually wouldn't let me, but I said, can I please go have a quick cigarette? He's like, yeah, if you dare. And then Maxwell took her dog walking, and her dog was like shaking, like, because her dog had to make a wee, and the dog was like shaking for half an hour. It was so cold. And then, the engine like froze up, and it was like really hard to like take off from there. But why would they be stopping in Newfoundland? Because it's actually off route. They said we needed to refuel.
Doesn't make any sense.
Because usually, Yeah, usually planes from Paris to New York, they don't need
It's
to
just no,
refuel.
it's a straight
They
shot. Yeah, they
don't go
clearly have.
to Canada to refuel.
Oh wow, that is a
Very
new one.
weird.
That is super weird.
Yeah,
So
it
how
is
much?
weird.
You mentioned Maxwell. How much interaction did you have with her?
Well, I mean, I was around them for about 3 months in total, and I would say like she was there for at least half the time, 2/3 of the time. She was always there. But I didn't used to speak to her a lot. I'd only see them at breakfast and lunch and dinner. But I used to stay on my own most of the time. And I was just like nervous of her. I could see she was like highly educated and a very confident woman, and I was just like nervous. And also, I was told that she was Epstein's girlfriend, so that made it even more weird for me. I was like, this man's taking me to his room, and I've got to sit here across from his girlfriend. This is very, it was just like, for a young girl, it was just like, what the f is going on?
Yeah, and I heard that she was abusing the girls too. Do you know anything about that?
She never did with me, but I've heard stories that she apparently did. But I didn't witness that. You know,
Got it, got it. And I also hear, like, from a lot of, secondhand accounts that, she's the most evil of the 2. Do you have any sort of I insight into that or no?
sorry, my dog's brushing the door. Sorry, but
No
the
worries.
second in command.
Well, I heard
Did you
that
say?
she's second in command, but I heard that she was, like, the most evil. Like, I've heard from other victims that she
I
was the
think she
most.
was actually in command. I don't
Mm,
know, but
okay.
I would say my dog's being shockers. I would say she was more likely. She was more intelligent than Epstein. I would say. I don't know if more intelligent, but she was more. I don't know. They were both very confident, and it's hard to say who was actually in charge. But she definitely, you know, seemed pretty high up um, in the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear, and, how do you feel about the fact that you know that she's gonna get a pardon?
Well, I mean, is she definitely going to get one? I think she definitely will. I
Mm.
mean,
I
you
mean,
know,
all the signs are pointing that direction. I mean, she got you saw Todd Blanche, by the way, Trump's personal attorney before this administration, went out there to interview her and gave her a bunch of softball questions and then confidently proclaimed, oh, Donald Trump is innocent, and then transferred her to a minimum security club fed prison where now she's got private meals catered for her and she has pets and everything else. Like, I think we know what's going to happen. Donald Trump is like, oh, I wish her well.
yeah, you're right.
I think he
No,
knows that she can bury him.
well, she should tell the truth, and she should give all the information that she has. You know,
Yeah,
um,
she's not telling the truth.
I mean, it's a big syndicate clearly, and it's ridiculous that only one person's been put behind bars for it. I mean, Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel were put behind bars, but they were both found dead, which is also very suspicious.
You don't
Um,
think Epstein's
there are
dead, do you?
obviously a lot more perpetrators. So
You don't think he's dead, do you?
Epstein, um, so hard to say. I don't really think he is. No,
Did you see the autopsy
no, he was
report on him?
so powerful. So Brett,
Did you see the autopsy report?
yeah, I did. And also like he looked very different. Like his ears and nose looked different. And well,
What
I mean,
about the
also if they were
prostate?
cloning humans, if they really were cloning, then they could just toss a clone in prison, right?
You could do whatever you wanted to, but the thing that I was pointing out is like he has the autopsy report says a normal, unremarkable prostate, and if you look through the Epstein file emails,
Yeah, but his
he
penis was very small.
no, his prostate
And
gland had been
also,
removed.
another thing, they say he was 6 foot, but he wasn't 6 foot. He wasn't as tall as me, and I'm 5'10".
No, he looked really short. You see that video of him
They
and
say
Trump
he's six
together?
foot. He was not 6 foot.
No, he
I'm
looked about
5'10",
five
and he used to
nine.
come up to about here on me. He was about 5'8", 5'9". 5'8", I'd say. You can even see photos of him next to Trump and stuff, and he's definitely not 6 foot. But yet that's what they put out in the media. So they say he had a well. Anyway, it's more lies. It's just all lies.
All right. So since you mentioned clone, I'm going to put an audience question up on the board here. So I wanted to ask if you think Palm Beat Peach is Jeffrey Epstein. I think I know your answer, but go ahead.
You want me to answer? Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think so at all. No. No, it looks completely different to him. I mean, I can see there's a sort of likeness, but I mean, it's definitely not the same person. It's weird. I mean, maybe Palm Beach Pete is a clone that they've strummed up to sort of confuse everyone. I mean, nothing would surprise me these days, but Palm Beach Pete is definitely not Epstein. You can see in the eyes, because with like plastic surgery, the eyes, we'll always have the same, Epstein's eyes were different to that man's eyes. You could see it's not him, but they do have a very similar look.
Yeah, and he monetized the hell out of that too. Uh, c- Congratulations to Palm Beach
Palm
Peach, I
Pete.
guess. Oh shoot. Let's see another one. Oh, come on, hold on. Why are you not coming up? I'm not good at this live stream thing. There you go. What are your thoughts on Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey?
Well, I think that they've done a lot of work to try help. I don't, know exact details, but I'm grateful that they've sort of, been trying to get more of the files out. But some people, don't trust Messi. I don't know. I think he seems like a good guy. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I also think she seems like a strong, good woman. I mean, Trump was so rude about her, wasn't he? Marjorie Traitor Greene. I mean, he behaves like a 2-year-old. It's very rude, actually. But yeah, I think good for all the people who are, trying to get more information out and trying to help. And I think Thomas Massey seems like a very good guy. Like the way he lives on a farm, and it's he's got this beautiful property where he sort of grows his own food, and I think he's got the right idea. I prefer someone who lives like that than someone like Trump who lives in like a golden dome with all this like God knows what.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm not a politics guy. I hate politics, but I like Thomas Massey. He seems like a decent guy. And watching the attacks on Trump that Trump levied towards him were really gross. I'm not sure if you pay attention to U.S. politics, but
Yeah,
he
yeah,
primaried
I
him,
did. Yeah.
bought his basically bought his seat and got him ousted, and sent some pretty nasty personal attacks. They deployed some girl that he was
Mm.
dating, and there's all this sort of nasty stuff that came out. It was politics is
And
such a
I
dirty
threatened
game,
him.
and watching him go through that was just like, ugh, that was not
Well,
fun.
remember how like they got Trump on? Someone was filming him, and he said, "Oh, with women, you just grab him by the pussy."
Oh yeah,
Remember? I mean, he's distasteful. I mean, Thomas Massey seems like a much more of a gentleman than Trump, that's for sure. And and also with Trump, he was like the apprentice. He's like, "You're fired." He's like an actor, actually. It's much like Schwarzenegger being like, I don't know how an actor can suddenly become a governor or president. It's two completely different career paths.
not in America anymore. I think our political establishment has turned
Well, they're all
into
actors. You're right. Actually, it's not
it's
a different
yeah.
career path because the
It
puppets are actors. Like Charlie Kirk could have also been an actor, I suppose. It's like they are just actors.
Yeah, I think Charlie's a little different though. I've done a bunch of research into this, and if you're not following the Leah files, like she's a former CIA operative who was investigating financial crimes, and she's been doing this follow the money thing on TPUSA, and she's uncovered some really gross stuff. The self enrichment schemes. Charlie was a weird one, man. Turning Point USA, people don't realize, was founded by Bill Montgomery, who was a billionaire at the time. It was like co-founded by a 72-year-old billionaire who was tied into the GOP power structure, and then a 18-year-old kid, Charlie Kirk, who just finished high school. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, he was clearly like Bill identified him as some talent to sort of be the face of the organization and be the propagandist. But Bill got caught doing a bunch of self enrichment schemes. He used to have LLCs, which were contractors for Turning Point USA that he
Bill,
owned, and they were basically giving money, and he was just making money hand over fist. And you find out that Charlie's doing the exact same thing. Like it was the whole thing in
Bill
Turning
who?
Point. Bill Montgomery. Yeah, go
Because
look
you know
him.
what I realized with Epstein, you've got Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Bill Richardson. Then you've got Epstein's face on the dollar bill. Then there's Bill Barr, who wrote the book about space and weird and child sex stuff, very weird. Why? What's with all these bills? Bill, there's another bill now.
I,
Another one.
I don't know. I love the way your brain works. That pattern recognition. It's elite.
Yep, it is weird though, with all these bills.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, that was
Yeah.
his protege taught Charlie how to use nonprofits to you know uh, like I said, it's called self-dealing. How to enrich yourself personally through this sort of nonprofit structure. It's really gross.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is people, leaders need to look after people. They shouldn't just be looking after themselves and each other. It's about looking after people. And I guess that's the biggest problem in the world at the moment is our leaders are corrupt and they're greedy and they're criminals and they're thieves.
Yeah, I don't even call them leaders. I refuse. They're not leading me. I didn't
Well,
consent to them
leaders.
being in the yeah, they're
Yeah.
rulers in my view. These are people that exert power over other people and can use force and propaganda, but I don't accept them as my leader. I'm an individual. They can go fuck themselves. That's my position.
Yeah. No, you're right. Especially when they're not doing the right thing and not looking after people. And, that's why the world needs to change now.
Yeah, I agree. And
It's
this is
time for change.
it's one of the reasons I love talking to you because I know we're both aligned in that. We want to make the world a better place. The world is full of terrible suffering and abuse and all sorts of awful things, but it's also full of light, right? I think there's a lot of good in the world, a lot of good people in the world, and we need to sort of elevate that and sort of push down some of the darkness, man. I think we both share that
Right.
goal.
And stand together and support each other. People
Yes,
must, be kind and supportive and, because that's the way that things change. Because unfortunately, they've tried to isolate us, and it's not that people are selfish; it's that people are stressed and people are worried about but themselves. And the thing is, it's like the flower of life, and it's like connection. And if you look after others, then others will look after you, and it's like chain reaction. And the world's going to become a better place now because these guys' time is up. We've had enough of them. They can leave. They're over and out. We want them gone. We want good people in positions of power. That's why it's been good having people like Thomas Massey and you say Marjorie Taylor Greene. And there's some, also like Elon Musk. I don't know if he's good or bad, but he seems like, decent. You
boy.
know,
I changed my view on him a lot, and honestly, it was about
yeah,
Epstein too. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Do you remember from the files release? Hey, what's the wildest night on your island, Jeffrey? Trying to come and party with him on Epstein Island, and then also meeting with him after he'd already been convicted. There's photos of him
yeah. But
having
you
dinner.
are right.
It's like, I'm not buying it. And also, there's a lot of this stuff with the Trump administration. Like he called out Trump, like you're in the Epstein files, buddy. The truth's going to come out. Bookmark this tweet. Remember all that stuff that he posted, and then he just went
Yeah, no, you're
silent.
right.
He didn't say a fucking thing after that. And now he's a trillionaire. He's getting all this money from
Yeah,
the
they're
government.
all
Like,
after money.
yeah. So
And
I,
also, he said he would like help any Epstein victims who were sued for putting out the truth. And he's never like reached out to any of the victims actually. And I mean, I went to school down the road from him. He went to Bryanston High.
yeah,
I went to Bryan Heaven. I grew up like it was like literally 5 minutes away the school I went to. I mean, he's older than me, but he comes from the same place as me. You would have thought that he would like give some more support for the victims. And but I mean, I don't know. At least he created X because like I've been able to speak out, and it's actually I think in a way almost saved my life. Kept me
mm,
safe being able to speak on X. So I'm grateful for that. But again, like you're saying, some people get manipulated and controlled. But I mean, with him emailing Epstein, trying to be friendly in that time, like I also was friendly to Epstein, and the thing is, a lot of people thought that the media were lying about him because the media has actually lied about a lot of stuff because it
for
wasn't
sure.
actually just 14-year-olds. I didn't see 14-year-olds. I did meet 17-year-olds, two of them. But there's a lot more of what was going on. But anyway, they obviously found that as a way. They obviously had been a 14-year-old. I mean, goddamn, the man was a pervert. So, maybe, anyway, the thing is that, yeah, I don't know who to trust anymore. And I trust you, Brent, and I trust my friends, and I trust a lot of good people on X. There's some amazing people on here, and we've just got to trust each other, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. So I agree with you there. Like, I think we get to a certain level of individual, get a certain echelon of power and, money and that sort of thing. You don't know what to believe. It's very difficult to trust them.
Yeah,
So I think that's great. I think X is great in that sense that I've got a bunch of friends and homies on here that I know very well and I can trust, and we're all aiming the same direction and we're all asking for the same thing, especially around the Epstein files. Like, cool, that's really great. So I'm happy for that piece of it, but I certainly don't trust the man. So I'll just leave it at that.
yeah. Well, I guess we got to wait and see. It's just, I sometimes even wonder if maybe they've like actually knocked him off. Because the thing is, he was like jumping on the stage and he was so vocal, and now he's like gone quiet. And it's suspicious because, if they can clone someone, they could easily knock someone off and clone them, and then they've got all the money. So, I mean, it might sound far out to others, but the thing is, I've come to the point where like anything's actually possible.
You never know. That's one thing that's been great about the Epstein files release is that things that people believed were completely impossible 2 years ago, like everyone's like, oh, so they're just like, murdering children and eating them in form of jerky and, a bunch of like, everyone's like, maybe that's happening. So I
Yeah.
think it's at least opened people's minds to like how depraved that class of person is. And I think it's a good thing. And I don't make strong claims to know all the details, but I think it's a good thing to know that the people that are ruling us, they're terrible people that do not have a good bone in their
They don't
body
have
for the
our
most
best
part.
interests at heart.
Certainly not.
They care
Certainly not.
about money.
So, last
And
question. We're
that's
getting
that.
short on time. I really want to ask you this, and this is I'm not sure exactly how to phrase it, but how do you feel about having your identity tied to Jeffrey Epstein?
It's been horrible, really, because I like to have a quiet life, and I'm a mum, and um, yeah, it's all been horrible. I've even recently been recognized when I go out, which is like really frightening for me, because I'm like, like twice recently, people are like, oh my God, and I'm like, ah. Um, but it's changed over the years because at first, like, a lot of people thought the girls were prostitutes, and I've never been a prostitute. I don't judge prostitutes, but I'm not, a prostitute. And I think over the years, since more's coming out, and now people are realizing, what we've been through, like, there's a lot of shame with it, but like I think as the years are going on, I'm starting to feel like more pride about being able to speak out and helping, and like, speaking to people like you, and all coming together and making a difference. I'm like, I'm actually grateful that I've had this, even though it's been very painful, to have the opportunity to try help, because I always wanted to try help the world and stuff. So I think I'm grateful for the opportunity of it, and thank God the shame is slowly turning to pride for being strong, and for trying to do the right thing. And I know that there are always going to be people who don't understand and people who judge, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I just send everyone lots of love, and I just really want the world to become a better place. You know, I want everyone to be happy. I don't want to see anyone in pain.
Awesome.
Yeah, I want
Well,
a better world.
that's really great. And the reason I bring this up is every time I see you on X, it's always Juliette Bryant, Epstein survivor, and I think maybe it's because I've gotten to know you personally. I'm just like, man, she's like a really sweet lady, and that's not who you are. That happened to you. That's a big part of your story. But you're like super talented artist, and you're like a really sweet person, really kind, very sensitive. Like, and it's like for me, like it's always jarring a little bit. It's like that's my friend Juliet. That's not like I don't like that association. Maybe so. I just wanted to ask how you felt.
Thank you so much. Well, my mum actually said recently I must take off Epstein survivor, and I've just put my name as Juliette Rose Bryant now. The only reason I did it in the beginning was to try get the word out and to get more support, because I was very scared. I
Mm,
was had like threats, and I was frightened, but yeah, and I'm just really grateful to everyone, for listening, and for everyone for standing up for justice. And the more of us that stand together, the better. There's great strength in numbers.
awesome.
That's what we need to remember.
Well, thank you for being so brave. Like I'm seriously, I'm such a big admirer of yours because I know how difficult and scary and everything this is, and how traumatized you've been. But you still do it. You still show up. You're like, "Fuck you, middle finger to the world. This is what happened to me. I'm not going to shut up about it." And I'm in that same boat. You see me all the time. I go crazy about this shit. I'm like, "No, we're not letting this go." And
You're
I encourage
amazing.
everybody. Why don't you tell people where to follow you? Because I want everybody to follow Juliet and amplify the message. Being like, "We're not going away. We're not going to be quiet."
Thank you, Brent. You're so amazing, and really thank you for being such a huge support. And you and your family are all amazing, and just thank you. I don't know where I'd be without amazing people like you. So just thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Tell people where to find you, though. I want to make sure that they know where to to
Oh,
to.
sorry. Juliette Bryant. On X, you can just look Juliette Bryant. Juliette space. Oh, well, you can write Rose in the middle if you want. Sorry. Juliette Rose Bryant. Sorry, but I think my tag is actually just at Juliette Bryant, one word. Sorry for the confusion.
No,
Thanks,
no,
friend.
no worries. Everybody go follow her. Juliet's awesome. And thank you so much for giving me your time. I really appreciate it. I'm really honored you came by again.
Oh, thanks, Brent. We'll do a follow up one day soon when hopefully there's been more justice. Hopefully, our next interview will be about things getting better. Well, it
So,
is getting better, but better
so
and better and
some
better.
perp walks, some people going to jail. That'd be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good
Brent,
day.
have a lovely afternoon. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye bye.